The last truss coming off the ground, that's always a nice sign. Wish we could have done it before any of the rain came, but we got a little bit of rain last night, so we got one truss that got rained on. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Dream Build. This is episode 4, and we're wrapping up trusses. We're finishing up the wall framing, and we're dealing with wind. As you can see in the video, we've got just storm clouds rolling in and out on us all day, but our goal is to get this thing framed up so that we can really feel good about having it chained down and secured. That way we can let it go for the weekend and not feel any stress about the weather. Well, we didn't quite think about this one. Actually, we thought about it. We didn't think it'd be an issue. We put this end truss in here against the wall to get it out of our way. Now that we're ready to install it, my telehandler is gonna hit the trusses up above before I get to a point where I can lift this off. So we're gonna have to get a little bit creative. I will make it work though. We'll get it out of here. Get the last truss up so we can build that end wall, get it secure. Went ahead and got that cable attached, slid it out. I should be able to get my boom up now. Get it set before this rain comes. We just keep seeing these little spitting clouds go through. We need to get this done. If you check out this bottom cord on this single ply end truss, because it's so wide, 72, we got to have that stiffener board on the bottom, and that allows us to hang this real easy. It keeps the truss rigid, and once we're done with this, we can just sit back, enjoy the fruits of our labor, and take it easy because it's the weekend. Yeah, I didn't think so. We got to keep working. Now, the last bit of framing that we really have to do is this end wall, and I'm trying to figure up these end posts. What we've got is our common end post that we then, you can see, has the center notch already in there, and we're just going to go ahead and take some 2x8 material, which is the thickness of those posts, and we're going to use that app on my phone to find the exact rise at each post location. That way we can calculate it, get them installed. We're going to go ahead and put, quite a few 20-penny nails, both sides, and that definitely makes it nice and rigid. And the reason we're doing this is so that we've got a continuous post from the bracket on the foundation all the way up to the top cord on the truss. And that's, I think, I've seen it done a couple different ways, but I think that's a great way. You know what? This just sucks. The rain, it's not even rain, it's like a mist. But I'll tell you what, people have made comments before following along on Instagram, like, why do you guys shut down when it starts raining? Like, because we're Nancy's. No, but the big thing is we got a lot of money invested in our tools, and being out here in the rain, I don't mind getting wet, but I do not want to have a circular saw drill or something, that costs $300-400 break or go bad just because I wanted to hustle for a couple more minutes. It's starting to come down pretty well. It's a really heavy mist. I don't even know if you can really see it. I definitely should get my camera probably out of the rain. We got this last bay of trusses up, locked down. We got the building secured with chains. We were gonna start putting up these jam posts, but I think we're at least gonna call it, maybe take an early lunch and see what this weather system does. There's just pop-ups everywhere. I mean, pretty heavy mist. Who are we kidding? We can't wait. We're not gonna go to lunch yet. We're just gonna go ahead and start installing this stuff. We put away all the electronic tools, anything battery powered, and we're just going to go ahead and finish these end posts. A little bit of mist isn't going to hurt our pouches and hammers. So we'll bring in the telehandler. We'll lift these up individually. Typically, we would stand up a whole header at one time. But if you remember, we've got all of our 2x12 material for these headers being used currently up there on the roof, keeping it locked in together all as one unit. If you remember that in I think it was the last video. But so we're just going to go ahead and stand these posts, frame the wall girts in between them. Not a whole lot to be done on this front end wall, which is good and bad. I like a lot of structure on an end wall, but having the lean-tos, there's going to be plenty of structure on this building, so no worries there. Now, a lot of times I get comments, people say, hey man, don't always do the time lapse. Just let us watch you work. We learn a lot by just watching. And so I thought, Okay, I'll do that. We'll see if you guys get bored. I'm just going to frame up this little section of wall girts. And something to notice is we always set some nails on the jamb post so that we can put our boards on there, and then we fasten it to the corner first. And we're doing that because we want that nice tight connection over there on the left side where we know it's supposed to be. And since the building was laid out correctly, we hope, all these wall girts were all pre-cut, pre-measured, which means that the inside face of that jamb column there on the right should be right to the edge of that wall girt. So as I fasten them on the left side, when I come over here now to the right side, my goal is to make sure that those are flush. And sometimes you gotta work hard at it because these large timbers aren't always perfect. You don't always just get lucky, and sometimes you gotta put your back into it. Other times you use leverage, and I know I've shown that trick before, but I think I show it here pretty soon, and that's when you got to set a nail in the post or in the wall girt and then use two hammers. One hammer to kind of pull apart or push and pull the post where you want it, and the other hammer to just get your nail pounded in. And that's the one thing that I always stress to anybody that's new on site, is that you never nail a board where it wants to be. You always nail the board where you want it to be, and sometimes that means you got to work a little bit harder, use a little bit of leverage. And here's that trick. I'm going to set my nail, and I'm always going to set my nail on the piece of material that is inset. So right now my jamb column is out past my wall girt, so when I set that nail, I can use the other hammer and pull the nail out, which is going to drive the post in and bring the girt out. And sometimes it's a little bit tricky. Usually you have to get in a position that's fairly uncomfortable, but it's definitely makes it a lot easier to do it yourself instead of needing somebody helping you push and pull while you're making that connection. So just little tips and tricks. It's always easier to use leverage than brute force. My guess is somebody right now is wondering why I'm not working out of the scissor lift. You know what? I had to push the top of this post, and sometimes it's just more comfortable to let the hammer fall down and do the work instead of work over your head, and that's usually the way it is when you're in the scissor lift. So I've just found this to be a lot easier, a lot more comfortable, and more efficient. What a crazy morning. The weather has constantly changed on us. We've gotten rained on more often than not, but we did get the front wall framed up, so that feels great. Just starting to sprinkle a little bit again. We're gonna go get lunch, but we did get the garage door jambs all done. We got those connected, so we kind of got the main frame done. I got one more post right up here that's got to go in, and then we'll put our headers in at a later date once we pull those 2x12s off for roofing. As you can see, right now we're using the chains for all of our bracing, but what we will be having very shortly is some permanent triangle bracing. And so Greg's getting some measurements so that we can figure out what kind of X bracing we're going to have in the walls, what my dimensions are, and I'll show you how we do that, because I do use my phone and a calculator app to figure out the exact dimensions. Math never lies. So the first thing I always like to do is I kind of draw myself a diagram. This will help explain it. What we're going to do is this is a post, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a double X brace in this post. And I do this because running one board from here to here is not as strong. If you only run one board, your angle, this angle on a tall wall like this is too steep. It's not adding any strength side to side. So what we do is we cut that in half and we do a double X brace so that it really locks in the bay here. Well, what I already know is my distance between the two posts is 87.5 inches. I also know my height is 18 foot 1/4 inch. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this dimension in half. Pretty darn easy. It's 9 foot and 1/8. I already can do that, or you can use a calculator. 9 foot 8. Now this is where I'm going to get into my calculator app. Now it's called Builder's Helper, and it's on the App Store. So I don't know if it's for Android, but it's called Builder's Helper. Builder's Helper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that 9 foot 0 inch 1/8 rise. So that was the height of half of my wall. And then I'm going to take the 87 inch 1/2 run. So that's the triangle that I've already determined. That's going to give me a pitch of 14 13/16. So that's the angle of that X brace. Once I've got that, I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. 14 13/16 pitch. Now, I'm going to show you down here in a diagram why I'm going to use this pitch here for my next calculation. So let's do another drawing. We're going to make 1X. This is my grade. That's my concrete wall. I'm going to have this board coming up like this. It's a 2x6 board, which means I'm going to come up 5.5 inches for another board. This is 9 1/8. This pitch is the 14 13/16 pitch. If I just use that pitch and the diagonal that came out of my calculation of 11 foot 7 1/8, it's going to be off, and I'll tell you why. Because it's giving me the dimension from this point all the way up to this point. I need to take out this 5.5 inches. That is the thickness of the board, so that I'm only figuring out this triangle right here. So I have to take, so I'm going to take the pitch of that angle, which is 14 13/16. Make sure I hit pitch. Then I'm going to take the height of a 2x6, which is 5.5 inches. That's my run. It's going to give me a diagonal dimension of 8 3/4. That 8 3/4 is this dimension right here, because I just figured out right here I took 5.5, 14 13/16 pitch. Once I know two of those dimensions, whether the rise, the run, the diagonal, the run, the pitch, the run, it's Pythagorean theorem from school, okay? So it's good that you learn from your math teacher. I'm going to take 9 foot 1/8. That's my old rise, and I'm going to subtract the 8 inch 3/4. So that's going to give me 8 foot 3 3/8. That's my new rise. I've got the same run of 87.5. So now I can take those numbers. That's my rise. I'm going to take the 87.5 inch run. It's going to give me a new pitch of 13 5/8. And it's going to give me a diagonal measurement of 11 foot 7/16. So what that is, it just gave me this point right here. That's 11 foot 7/16 to here. And the pitch of this board is going to be 13 5/8. So we're going to go ahead and cut those up. All 4 of these X's, all the boards in these X's should all be the exact same. So we'll cut them all up and see how we did. Now, one of the nice things is you pick yourself up one of these squares. Stanley, I've had this forever. You can set the pitch. I wanted this at 13 5/8. So there's 13. You know, you're going to have to eyeball just past a half. Tighten it down. Then I'm going to measure from my long point the 11 foot 0 7/16. Look at that brand new tape. I just busted it out. I love the way a new tape. Oh, so nice. And I'm going to use that point now for my short point. So I will square up. Now I always like to test it before we cut all of them because, you know, math don't lie, but I make mistakes. Now I should be able to take this board, set it down here. Boom. So that is one of our boards. We'll do another one going this way. This one will get nailed into the girts. The other one we'll have to put a block down the bottom when we put our grade board, and we'll double X this. We'll set another one right on top of that, and that really locks the wall in, and then we can get rid of our chains. Cool, let's make them all. Now what I'm using to fasten these is the Hitachi cordless framing gun, and I know you guys have seen me use it. It's still doing a great job. The only problem is it does shoot so powerful that if you don't adjust the depth and be careful, you can blow out the backside of your material. Now you may be asking yourself how I know that. Well, let's just say you learn by making mistakes. We've made that mistake once before. We won't make it again. It's something that we're cognizant of. We also will come in from the outside and we'll screw those boards in from the outside. That does reduce the chances, obviously, of any nails poking out. However, when you're nailing, that's not as easy because I don't like to nail and, you know, go through and push out the material. I don't feel like I get as nice of a connection versus when you're screwing, it at least pulls that material together. So I think we were out of screws at this point. I needed to get some more, so I went ahead and nailed it. I just make sure I'm careful with those nails. So you can see here I'm setting up this double X, and I've got one board that is touching my wall girts. The other board is obviously 1.5 inches out. I could double up this board and make it, you know, on the wall girt, but to be honest, it's, in my experience, isn't necessary as long as I get the top connections and then I connect that X there in the middle. There's a lot of strength here, and basically we got this design from a commercial engineered building that we had done. This is what the engineer spec'd, and it was a monster building. I think it was an 80 by 200 with a 30 or 36 foot overhead door in the end. And so this is how they called out the X bracing on the end wall to add some shear strength. So now we just kind of use it every time. Well, that's gonna about wrap it up for the wall framing. We've got our trusses done now, so the main structure is built, which feels great because we can really lock it down and feel good about leaving it for the weekend. We've got overhangs next, which will allow us to get started on our roofing, which is always nice because that also helps lock down the building. But now you can see we've got all of our X braces in the walls, and that means this building is going nowhere. It also means that we're ready for the next step. So I hope you're willing to stick around, watch us put the roof on this. We've got overhangs coming up next. So I appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys hanging around. Hit that bell if you've already subscribed. That way you get that notification when the next video goes live. If you haven't subscribed, of course I would love for you to stick around. So please do that. Drop me a comment down below if there's something that didn't make sense. I definitely know the audio was poor, the lighting was poor when I did a lot of those calculations for those double X braces. So if there's enough demand, I can do a standalone video just showing how I come up with those angles, because I do use that same math in multiple stages of the build. So if there is a lot of use for that and people want it, I could do that also. And once again, I'm doing this content for you guys, so feel free to drop me some comments down below. Hit that thumbs up. I do appreciate it. Share it with your friends. and we'll see you guys next week, or hey, whenever the next video comes out, right? Because I'm busy building and definitely working hard to get you guys some new videos. So we'll see you later. Have a good one and stay safe.